Hello, hi, good morning. Do I call you teacher Ufa or Miss Ufa?
I'm a student doctor, so you can refer to me as Ulfa.
Ulfa. Okay, I'll just call you Ulfa then.
Okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, everyone. Before I begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Ulfa Hazima. I'm your moderator for today. And welcome to the distinguished webinar organized by JPTE Kebangsaan in collaboration with respected educators across Malaysia. Assalamualaikum and good morning to all the teachers here and the second semester student. First thing first, is my voice okay?
Yes, it's clear.
Thank you, Doctor. To all the students, as you know, this webinar covers all the subjects in the SPM syllabus. And if you or your friends happens to miss it, do not worry. It is recorded and will be uploaded to the YouTube channel today. So today we are joined by Dr. Aida Baizura binti Bahar. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Aida. Apa kabar?
Waalaikumsalam. I'm fine, thank you. Alhamdulillah.
So she is a senior lecturer in the Department of English Language and Faculty of Modern Languages and Communication in University Putra Malaysia. She has written few for journal publication, for example, Social Operation and American Culture Imperialism, The Crisis of Muslim Minority Groups in Terrorists by John Updike in 2022. So everyone, for this session, if you have any sort of inquiry, please write it down in the comment section and I will read it out loud to ensure that Dr. Aida is focused on her presentation. So, without further ado, let's start. So, Dr. Aida, saya persilakan.
Right. Assalamualaikum, everyone, and a very good morning also to the participants. First of all, you have to know that I'm on and off with my sore throat. I think it's the weather, but I have told Ufa that there will be a short break for all of us to get our perhaps a ladies' break or gents' break and all that. Thank you to I think it's I can't remember for the life of me. It is JPTE Kebangsaan, Jawatankuasa Perwakilan Tingkatan 6 Kebangsaan, for inviting me to give a talk on strategies for success in SCPM 920 literature in English. I would like to welcome, I can see from the list of participants, teacher Miss Surya Kumari and also Miss Adelina, who have been with me for I think more than 10 years on this on this subject. Yeah, thank you for joining, and also to, I believe, the students who are very keen to hear how to become successful in your SCPM 920 literature in English paper. Right. I'm going to go quickly into the literature in English 920 sukatan pelajaran peperiksaan, in which you can actually access through the website. And it is, congratulations also, it is a very good program they are organizing now, the MISI SCPM Cemerlang, because I believe that there are a number of students out there who are really keen to take up this course, but are perhaps a bit unsure on how to go about it and where the career pathway will be leading it to. So here is us today. I'm going to actually open with the official portal of the Malaysian Examinations Council, MEC, or we know it as MPM, Majlis Peperiksaan Malaysia. All you need to do is you just need to Google literature in English, and there is a sukatan pelajaran here, okay? Originally, I wanted to share with you what is in this new curriculum, because it's peperiksaan sukatan pelajaran peperiksaan SPM yang dimurnikan, and there has been major changes in terms of the literary text use, the prescribed text as we call it, and the way the assessment is going to be done. Yeah. So there's also a video of myself yapping, and it's on YouTube. So please feel free to go there and have a look at the sukatan pelajaran peperiksaan. Yeah. The revised curriculum. Okay. So this is just a quick, I would say, summary of the new, we will call it new, but revised curriculum of 920 literature in English. Okay, so the curriculum was designed in mind with the idea that we want to bridge what we call secondary and tertiary education. Apart from the critical appreciation aspect, we have included a creative response part and also ethical lifelong learning aspect. And these are achieved, hopefully going to be achieved through what we call diverse literary genres. So if we look at the left-hand side, the educational philosophy and core skills, we did not obviously simply create or revise the curriculum without consulting the educational philosophy, in which we plan to produce holistic individuals with 21st century human competence and with taxonomies. So for perhaps Miss Surya and Miss Adi, very familiar taxonomies things, yeah. We still stick to the same implementation, the 3-semester assessment scheme. Semester 1, we have poetry and short stories, in which we call paper 1 920/1. Okay. What I'm doing now is referring to my notes on the analysis in poems and short stories, the weight is 75 marks. Okay, so I'm just going to go through short stories, poems which were selected many months and years. Yeah. Okay. Is it? Sorry, it's my eyes. It's not 18, it's 16. Yeah. Sonnet 116, obviously by William Shakespeare. Valediction, Forbidding Morning by John Donne. When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be, John Keats. Ozymandias, Percy Bysshe Shelley. To My Father on His Birthday, Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Last Curtain, Rabindranath Tagore. Naming of Parts, Henry Reed. Welcome to Child, Judith Wright. 40, Love, Roger McGough. Love Cycle, Chinua Achebe. Women, Alice Walker. Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpati S. Nisam Ezekiel. A Martian Sends a Postcard Home, Craig Rain. Peace and War, Margaret Scott. Caged Bird, Maya Angelou, and So Much of Me, Charlene Rajendran. So all the collection starts from the year 1609 with Sonnet 116 to So Much of Me in 2000. So the collection of Malaysian short stories, there are 10. The first is Arriving by K.S. Maniam, A Wedding and a Funeral by Matthew Thomas, Calculator, Rizwan Othman, My Grandpa's Funeral, Chua Kok Yi, Dividing Walls, Shili Kao, Nayagi, Mistress of Destiny, Utaya Sankar, Moving Home, Chua Kok Yi, Act of Faith, Fazli Shah, Johanna Bas, Janaki's Journey, Krishna Veni, K.K. Panika, and The Pickpocket by Anis Rosalina Ramli. And the short stories chosen were published from 1995 to 2021. That would be paper 1. Meanwhile, semester 2, again, the same weightage of 33.33%, carrying 75 marks. We call it plays. 920/2. We have chosen Othello by Shakespeare and A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. 1 traditional play and 1 modern play. And finally, we have semester 3 prose fiction, or rather novels, 920/3. Again, the same weightage. And we have chosen Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen and The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. Sorry about the mistake in the spelling. So the critical appreciation pillars, focusing on literary devices and form, history, culture and gender, personal and global relevance. All these are actually in the curriculum, which you can download from MPM website. Now, we move on to what I call the start of how do you want to be successful in answering of grade A student versus grade C student for 920 English literature in English paper. Okay, so the purpose of this mission, as we call it, is to ensure that there's still humanity in the digital age. 21st century, we have artificial intelligence. Okay, and there is that concurrent journey in which we do not want to be left behind in terms of technology, but at the same time, we do not want to lose our human character, as we call it. So literature is the bridge between these two, artificial intelligence and digital advancement, and human character. So the first thing when you want to take literature is you have to be aware of the importance of intellectualism. When you are engaged in this kind of course, it is about cultivating humanitarian character, such as being critically judgmental in terms of ensuring that you have empathy, you have critical thinking, and also a positive attitude towards whatever you are reading. Okay, so in taking this course also, you have that what we call the professional edge. You need to also concurrently build 21st century skills, meaning complex problem solving, effective communication, and networking. And all these are going to be achieved, hopefully, when we look at the assessment of criteria later. Okay. And then we aim for our students, hopefully, who take this subject to be global citizens. You do not have to be physically out there, but you can contribute to the pool of scholarship when you are able to go beyond what we call physical borders. Okay, you can confront global crises in terms of engaging in discourse or conversations and discussions about them with a critical mindset, and are aware of multicultural realities. More so, we live in Malaysia, a country which is rich and diverse cultural values, and so forth. So this is a course which aims to do all this and much more. Yeah. So this is what I call the examination theater. Right. So you have semester 1, which is paper 1, and I have already read to you the prescribed text for the poetry and short stories, 16 global poems and 10 Malaysian short stories, to ensure that we are grounded, in our own local context. And we have semester 2 or paper 2, the plays. We have chosen Othello, of course, by William Shakespeare, and the Dolls by Henry. Semester 3, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, and The Namesake by Jumpa Lahiri. So all the papers are tested by section A, namely critical appreciation, and sections B and C, which are essay and creative response, which is a new element which we've added to the revised curriculum and assessment. Okay, what are the assessment objectives? When an examiner is examining your papers, your answer script, this is what I call a grade A synthesis. The critical response. Students or candidates must give detailed responses with a relevant and appropriate textual evidence in a clear, organized prose. Most of the time, students do so, giving textual evidence. However, they are not able, or perhaps they have overlooked the importance of supporting their views or the answers by referring to the textual evidence. The textual evidence cannot be put in the answer script without some kind of synthesis or some kind of discussion. And this is where most students have not been able to get an A grade because of their inability, perhaps, to go back to the textual evidence in their explanation of the answer. The second assessment objective in which the examiners will look at is creative fluency. Because it's a literature subject, and we encourage our students to be as creative as possible by using the language in a very competent manner, in a very creative way, and they should be able to use so depending on the purpose of using the language. For example, if it's the section A or section B or section C. And of course, there has to be some kind of personal connection depending on the question asked. Yeah, the ability to relate text to personal experiences as well as your own modern societal realities. So if the question requires you to have some kind of personal connection to your answer, please do ensure that you relate not only the text, also to the modern realities, okay, meaning your own local reality, social reality. The other assessment objective is the literary mechanics. Because this is a loss, we do expect answers from a grade A students to have what we call structure, form, and point of view. Okay, language point of view. So I am aware that there have been some kind of feedback from students who or candidates in the past who are from what we call centers with no teachers, but that they have to learn it of themselves, private centers. And I feel that a good way to learn this now is via sources which are available online, or via, so for example, MPM websites in which you can refer to the specimen of the question and also the list of literary devices which will be covered, in the assessment later. The next assessment objective is in which examiners will look at questions requiring an approach in terms of comparative analysis, where candidates are then required to compare and contrast texts. And these comparative analysis will be conducted via issues in which they will, the question will give issues, perhaps of current issues in the Malaysian context or global context, and also via language and various themes. And finally, the assessment objective number 6 is contextual awareness. Some questions require the candidates to demonstrate awareness, their own awareness of social, cultural, and historical backgrounds. Therefore, if you look at the grade A synthesis here, apart from studying the prescribed text, candidates are also required to have a very good background in general knowledge. It's good to be able to relate your own answers to to general knowledge, but of course it has to be related to what the questions have asked you. Okay. So here is what I call the analytical toolkit, and these are the 3 lenses which we are going to be normally asked students via the exam questions. For example, lens 1 is a formalist lens, literature, language, and form in terms of how the text is built. Sometimes questions will be asked to candidates via the formalist lens. Lens 2 is a cultural lens. Okay. Literature, history, and culture, meaning the world surrounding the text, or what we call the text world. So when teachers are teaching or learners are learning by themselves, you do ensure that you have access, or you do research a little bit of reading on the cultural background of the text, the historical background of the text. Okay, an overview of the background of the text, for example. And then lens number 3 is the gender lens, literature and gender, the power dynamics within the text. Okay. Most often than not, the gender issues will focus on the female issues relating to the female characters. And so if you look at the prescribed texts, there will be gender issues which can be analyzed via the prescribed texts. Yeah. So a bit of advice to the students, to the candidates, to the students today: do not memorize an isolated list of literary terms. Memorizing can be a bit tricky if you do not know how to actually use the literary terms. Okay, so what you do instead is you learn to examine all the prescribed texts through these 3 specific called the complete critical appreciation. Okay, so what you gather from the text, what the text tells you about its cultural background, or the form used, or the gender dynamics, then this is how you actually learn to apply the literary lens. And lens number 1, which is the formalist framework. I'm just giving an example, of deconstructing literature, language, and form. So how are we doing, Ulfa? Is there any questions so far, or I can just proceed?
You can proceed, Doctor. There's no questions so far.
Okay, thank you. So lens 1, the formalist framework in deconstructing literature, language, and form. Now, the first one is the literary devices involved, okay, in which the examination questions will perhaps ask you to identify and evaluate metaphors, motifs, dramatic irony, symbols, and paradoxes. So all these then, although you feel that you have to memorize them, but the best way is to learn it through the text and see which texts perhaps have all these literary devices. Narrative techniques, analyzing point of view, for example, omniscient versus limited narrative, and then a stream of consciousness, foreshadowing, and dialogue. Again, the best way to learn a narrative technique is through looking at each prescribed text. Setting an atmosphere to determine the significance of spatial landscapes, time periods, and the emotional mood / tone. Of course, now we have the eco-criticism literary approach. At your stage, we call it the spatial landscapes, anything to do with the flora and fauna, the nature. Especially in the poem selection, we have poems which do reflect this kind of atmosphere and setting. For characterization, is to compare external actions with inner conflicts, speech patterns, and interpersonal relationships. This can be discerned through the 10 Malaysian short stories as well as the novels and plays. Yeah. And the structure of the formalist framework includes mapping the sequence of events, the stanzas, subplots, and climaxes of each narrative. So the structure here also refers to the poems, and the sequence of events will be for paper 2 and paper 3, also for the short stories, involving subplots for the longer text, which is novels, and climaxes for plays and novels as well as short stories. Okay. Lens to the cultural and historical framework for candidates to locate the text in time and society. So the collection of texts, the new prescribed texts in the revised curriculum focuses on all this. Yeah, they focus on power relations in which students are asked to analyze hegemony, class conflicts, and the tension between centrality and marginality. So this word sounds very bombastic. It's just, in a simple terms, it's actually looking at unity and then looking at people in power versus those without power, the centrality, meaning people in power, and marginality, those who are marginalized outside the power structure. Okay. And then you have beliefs and values, in which you may be asked, as students may be asked to contrast the author's values with societal norms and your own contemporary ideology. All right. And then it's also related to diaspora and migration, in which students are asked to evaluate themes of alienation, dislocation, integration, and the search for roots. Example in the novel The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. Again, this sounds very bombastic. It could be very difficult for some students, but actually it's about a very common theme now, which is immigration, not only affecting those in Southeast Asia, but also across the world, a global issue in which alienation is about those who are displaced, meaning they have to migrate to another country due to a forced migration because of war. Yeah. So when a character is forced to migrate, and this actually leads to a feeling of dislocation, meaning leaving behind your home country to migrate to the host country, and the character feels alienated. Yeah, in terms of the cultural values, having problems to integrate within the what we call the host country, and of course the search for roots for second, third, or fourth generations, because they feel that they cannot identify with the cultural values of the host country. So for some of our readers, perhaps, or for some of our students or the teachers, these themes are very common now, more so when you look at what is happening around the world, okay? Where we have refugees and asylum seekers, not only in Malaysia, but across the world as well. And then we have the historical context to understand, for example, how the late 16th century or 19th century Europe directly dictate character boundaries. So late 16th century, we're looking at William Shakespeare. And 19th century Europe can be represented by Henrik Ibsen, who's from Denmark, and also Jane Austen, who's from England. Okay, so the tradition of understanding characterization started with this what we call playwrights and authors, and that kind of storytelling has been replicated or mimicked throughout the years. And this is how taking this course 920 Literature in English through the prescribed texts will tell us how this tradition of storytelling, which you can find nowadays in modern films, movies, short stories and novels, you can find traces of their influence in the modern productions or writings and publications. Yeah. And finally, lens number 3, the gender dynamics, in which students are expected to be reading about power, patriarchy, and perspectives. As you can see here, the picture shows to us a societal expectations and individual agency. Okay, it is a binary opposition. What the society expects of us and what individual wants to, or how the individual wants to live their lives. Yeah. So the first one is systems of domination, in which students are expected to identify how historical and socio-cultural contexts enforce these various forms of patriarchy, stereotypes, and economic inequality. All right. This is where power comes in. Systems of domination. Gendered positioning, actively identifying the female or male perspectives embedded in the text. Depending on the narrative structure, not necessarily the author themselves, meaning the gender of the author themselves, but rather how the narrative is being positioned, how the text is being told to us as readers. Because when a text is narrated through the female perspective, we will give a different point of view. If it's told from a male perspective, of course, it will give us a different point of view. So these are among the kind of questions which require students to know regarding perspectives embedded in literary texts. Yeah. Empowerment and disempowerment require students to analyze the portrayals of women, female bonding, or rather we call sisterhood, and the constraints of traditional mothering/fathering roles. In some of the texts we have chosen, there are portrayals of this kind of gender dynamics. Okay, the question of sisterhood or brotherhood, and also portrayals of traditional societal expectations regarding the roles of mothers and fathers, in which they are also related to the systems of domination. Okay, maybe the traditional mother role is very heavily influenced by patriarchy, and there's a stereotype of the father being expected to carry out his role and to enforce patriarchy also. Finally, is alternative readings, in which students are expected to apply a culturally sensitive gender focus. Now, bearing in mind that we are in 21st century, and some of the texts go back to 16th century for Shakespeare, and the selection of the texts, the poems, more so, the selection will be on the time period across decades, across centuries. Okay, so one of the main questions will be to inquire to students how the 21st century values contrast with the text reality, meaning when the text was written in the 17th century, for example, that would be the text reality. So students are expected to know what would have been the 17th century moral value, for example. What would have been the 19th century Regency era moral values, for example, and how do they contrast with 21st century values? So in terms of Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, we know Austen was very much a writer during the Regency era. Societal expectations were very much about patriarchy and stereotypes. But how do those values then contrast with 21st century values? Is patriarchy still a value which we must uphold, and do marriages without love, for example, or marriages based just on economic reasons, still something which the 21st century society practice? Yeah. So these are among the kinds of questions in which candidates will be expected to answer. All right. So the cognitive staircase, as I call it, in elevating your verbs. These are the kinds of questions which require students to answer. So the verb in which the setters, exam setters will use will be from this staircase, as we call it, the taxonomies, okay? So the easiest one will be to ask you to understand, students or candidates, to remember, understand what they have learned. And the verb used will be to identify and describe. For example, to identify the literary device and to clarify its literal meaning. Okay? A higher level will use illustrate, because we want the candidates to apply what they know. Most often than not, it will be literary devices. For example, to show how the narrative technique functions in the specific passage. Most often than not, this will be for part A, the critical, section A, the critical appreciation. And then the higher level, the third staircase, will be to require students to analyze the prescribed text using verbs such as examined or dissect. An example is to break down the relationship between a subplot and the main theme, so that we know whether or not the students have understood the narrative of the prescribed text. Yeah. The higher level then, the next level then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fourth one will be to test the student's ability to evaluate. The verbs used could be to critique or to defend, for example. Assess the effectiveness of the metrical pattern or judge the moral concerns of a prescribed text. The metrical pattern could be for poems. All right. And the highest one is to create, or to the verb use could be to compose, to generate original creative responses and contemporary interpretations. This is where the new assessment, what we call assessment objective comes in, to see the candidate's ability to be creative, and it is in sections B and C. Okay, so any questions so far? Or we can just continue, Ufa?
We can continue. Yep,
Okay.
Doctor, there's no questions so far.
All right, thank you. So this is, we have now moved on to a more detailed presentation on section A, which is critical appreciation. All right. This is the closed text rule, meaning in your answers, students should not refer to anything outside the excerpt given in the question paper. All right. So this is what we call the absolute mandate, where answers must focus entirely on that particular excerpt given. And no reference should be made to external details which are not found in the excerpt, what we call extraneous details. In my many years of examining students or candidates' answer script, a grade A student will just focus on the excerpt. Yeah, and they just quickly answer according to what the question has asked. There is no summarizing the plot. There's no paragraph saying this excerpt appears before, etc., etc., etc. No need to answer like that. Just go straight to the excerpt and the question required. So do not summarize, for example, the entire plot of Othello the play, or recount the entire history of the Dashwood family in Sense and Sensibility. Okay, you do not have to do so. What you do is to perform what we call a microscopic close reading of the text. Okay. And when you are starting to write your answer, read the question and answer according to what the question requires you. You need to anchor every of your claim, your observation and arguments strictly from the text. Do not refer to anything or lines outside the text. Yeah, do not refer to anything after the text. After the excerpt. Okay, just within the provided lines of the excerpt. So if you want to pick out and if you want to answer the question and you have point one, so the point one must refer to whatever is in the excerpt. You take it from the excerpt as your textual evidence. Okay. And section A, which is critical appreciation, the goal here is to demonstrate how the writer, depending on the text given, demonstrate how they have achieved their effect in this exact moment using the three lenses we have discussed earlier, the three lenses here, okay, critical appreciation lenses, directly on the provided text for section A, okay. So this means that students need not worry that the section A will be using literary texts and using excerpts from literary texts which are not taught or not learned. All of the questions will come from the prescribed text. Okay? So you do not have to worry that it is not something which you have not or you are not familiar with. Okay? So for sections B and C, the dual pathways, I call it, one is the conventional essay and one is the creative response. Okay. The creative response, as the teachers will be able to support later, is a new requirement for assessment. And where in the past we only covered the conventional essay, but now with the national educational policy and philosophy, we want to be able to generate individuals' skills with regards to being able to be creative, not only in how they behave, but also how they think, and that manifestation will come through their answers. So the conventional essays here, the requirement to get a grade A is when the answer is relevant to the question, relevant to the prescribed text. There are evidence or proof of critical thinking through the candidate's writing and what we call informed arguments. Okay. In contrast, for the creative response, requirement is originality. Yeah, their own evidence of being critical and how they understand related issues critically. Yeah, so you note here is originality, meaning something which may not be in the text or in terms of responses. For conventional essay, the execution, how you answer, is to build a strong logical and coherent development of ideas. Okay, students here need to show their logical thinking and how they are coherent, not only in their minds, but also how they then express it through their writings and their answers. In contrast, for the creative response, the execution, for example, is to adopt a specific form and style. The students are required to write a letter, and they have to put themselves as Desdemona, the character, or a diary entry as Nora, another character. Or students are required to put themselves in the shoes of Othello, for example. And Othello is asked to share his point of view via blog. Okay, so what we are doing here is the creative response is to allow some kind of freedom for candidates to write about the characters using 21st century methods. Yeah, of course we cannot say write an Instagram because it's impossible to have Instagrams of pictures. Yeah, or write caption for social for social media medium, for example, in threads. It's too short for us to know, right? So it will be something like a letter or diary entry in which we can still assess the students' ability to write, maybe using metaphors, using imagery, those kind of literary devices which hopefully you will be taught and you'll be learning later. Okay. And finally, for the conventional essay, the evidence required is where in which students support the arguments with comprehensive textual evidence from either the whole play or the novel or the selected poems and short stories. Okay. But for the creative response, the evidence it's not required to be 100% from the text, meaning the actual evidence. Rather, candidates are required to use their own vivid, imaginative, descriptive details, your own imagination, simply in simple words. So what you do then is that you connect your own answer, your own imagination to the prescribed text world, their universe and multifaceted purposes. So for the creative response, you know that, for example, in Sense and Sensibility, there will be characters who are in search of love, yeah, and there will be some kind of love triangle, some kind of love problems. Therefore, you use the same kind of themes and the same kinds of values of the time, and you then relate it to your own way of answering. So if you say to write a diary entry as Nora, you have to put yourself in Nora's universe, in Nora's text world, and imagine you are Nora. Okay? So this is what we call creative response. All right. So here is what I call the Chomola matrix and anatomy of a grade A. Whether we like it or not, the assessments will be in output, will be in and the criteria in which we grade students will be either your A, B, C, or D. So here I've put a comparison between grade C, the average response, and grade A, the Chomola response. Okay. So the first one is comprehension. A grade C with average response will give only some kind of critical understanding, whereas a grade A Chomola response will contain excellent critical understanding, addressing all aspects required in the question comprehensively. What I always remind my students, the difference between grade C and grade A is that grade C will answer according to what they know. They want to share what they know because they've done a lot of studying and they feel that they have to really put it out there. But the grade A student, yes, they also studied everything, but they only address whatever the question asks them. So I can see that in the question paper, there will be circling words, yeah? They will be circling terms they have found in the questions. And they then answer according to what they have circled. Because what is circled in the question is what is required in their answer. Addresses all aspects comprehensively. In terms of their approach, grade C average response will contain basic response relying on paraphrase and narration. What they do is, yes, they do give textual evidence, but they paraphrase that textual evidence. And they continue to retell the story as a narration, thinking that's the answer. But grade A Chomola response will contain a critical, sensitive, and original answer, in which, while they give the textual evidence, they do not retell the textual evidence, they do not paraphrase the textual evidence, rather they give answer around the textual evidence, saying that they are bringing in their own perspective regarding the textual evidence, and they become critical, saying this is not what should have happened, or this is what should have happened. So it is not just retelling the plot of the evidence. Okay. In terms of the structure, the average response, a grade C student, will contain some organization and occasional errors. But for the grade A Chomola response students, their structure is very coherent. It's very strong, logical, and coherent development, fluent and clear prose. Structure here refers to introduction, giving the what we call the points, yeah, followed the body of the paragraph or the answer, and then ending with what we call conclusion, in which they revisit what they have written in the body part of the answer. What I say occasional errors for a grade C average response is when they introduce new points in the conclusion, they include textual evidence in the conclusion, and they do not refer to points 1, 2, and 3 they have given in the body of the answer. So coherency here is about being able to arrange your thinking, whatever you have thought, and to arrange it in a very logical manner. So in the introduction, it must match whatever you have stated with regards to the points in paragraph 1, 2, and 3. And the conclusion will then refer to whatever you have stated and argued in your introduction. So if your introduction says you are going to talk about A, B, and C, please write it A, B, and C, not A, C, B, C, B, A. You'll be surprised that there are some students who somehow are not able to organize their answers well. And finally, evidence, grade C average response, limited textual evidence. Sometimes they do not have any textual evidence at all. Rather, they just retell the plot of the story, thinking that's the answer. Retelling the story is the answer. But the cemerlang response grade A students' argument will contain strong, precise textual evidence directly supporting the argument. Yeah. So they argue, for example, the female protagonist is a victim of patriarchy, and then they give the right and precise textual evidence to support whatever they have stated. For example, in regards to the novel, Sense and Sensibility. Yeah. So that's what I meant earlier when I said that the best way to learn about literary devices, to learn about the themes and issues listed in the revised curriculum, is to go through the texts themselves. So the text will tell you what they contain, what it contains. So then you know when you go back to the questions, what are the kind of issues which will be asked when it comes to this text, when it comes to that text. Okay? Right. Bridging the delta, as I call it, narration versus analysis, how you apply the cognitive staircase. All right. So the text here, I have used an example, is the play Othello by Shakespeare, William Shakespeare. In terms of narration, what I call the trap here, for most of the time, grade C and grade D only retell the story. Yeah. So an example is in this excerpt, Iago says he hates Othello and plans to use Cassio to make Othello jealous because Othello trusts people too easily. So what this shows us as examiners is that the candidate is only able to identify the character and what the character has done according to the plot of the story. Because Shakespeare plotted the narrative, the play in such a way, the candidate, grade C and D, only retells the story again. Only managed to identify what the plot is. But the triumph here on the right side, the analysis of a grade A student, is that they are argumentative. There is a critical thinking happening in their answer. So the insight they've given here, in which they are able to examine the text critically and able to evaluate the text also critically, and this is the answer. Through his chilling soliloquy, Iago reveals his manipulative genius. By exploiting Othello's free and open nature using animalistic imagery, and here the textual evidence given is led by the nose as SSR, Shakespeare underscores the tragic irony that Othello's greatest virtue, meaning his trust, will be weaponized to destroy him. So never mind the very high level and bombastic word, what I'd like to bring your attention to is the evaluating aspect which I can see as an examiner, in which the candidate is very open to state clearly that Othello is a manipulative genius. Iago is a manipulative genius who's able to exploit Othello. And looking at the structure of and the form of the play, it's what we call a soliloquy, meaning the character is speaking in a solo manner, by themselves. And then to give a textual evidence led by the nose as SSR, using an aspect of imagery, animalistic imagery, meaning Othello's free and open nature. He's very trusting, but explaining and evaluating Othello's free and open nature by using animal imagery led by the nose as SSR, donkeys lah, like a donkey, kaldai, led by the nose, meaning you can actually manipulate that person. So going back to the playwright Shakespeare, underscoring the tragic irony. Irony is a literary device. Okay, that Othello's greatest virtue, meaning Othello's character of open trust, very trusting, will be used to destroy him. It's very simple. But the words used, you can see the very high level of words used shows that this is a candidate with a very good argumentative insight. Okay? Sorry, so if you go back to grade C also has the theme of trust, in which Othello trusts people too easily. But you can see how they differ in terms of their answers. Okay, one is narration, one is analysis. Right? So, wielding the scholar's evidence. Now, when you answer, you must have textual evidence, because a claim without textual evidence is just your opinion, and it's not contextualized within the prescribed text. So a grade A response is built on what I call a foundation of meticulously selected textual evidence. And when you are able to make that connection, you are a scholar. A scholarly evidence, as we call it. So how do you do so? First, you assert your argument, your point of view, your what we call your answer, the first answer lah. So you state your own critical insight. Second, you embed that with the textual evidence. For example, I gave earlier the female protagonist in Austen's Sense and Sensibility is very much influenced by the system of patriarchy during the Regency era. And then you embed it by putting in an exact quote or specific scene which details naturally into your assertion, your sentence syntax. Yeah, so this just means that you bring in maybe not a block quotation or the whole exact text evidence, but maybe some scenes which can support your assertion. And maybe one or two phrases which shows or supports what you have said regarding patriarchy during the Regency era. And then the third one is to unpack what you have embedded via the textual evidence to explain how specific words in the textual evidence, the tone of the evidence, or maybe just the literary devices used within that evidence will then go back to prove your assertion in number one. Okay, that is the structure of a grade A response. Remember, give your assertion, embed textual evidence, unpack the textual evidence, and then go back to your assertion. And that is why it's coherent and it is a cycle which must be related to one another. So what you need to remember is that Textual evidence is just not a dialogue, and textual evidence is not supposed to answer for you. Putting in a textual evidence and then just leaving it without unpacking it is not a grade A response. Okay? The textual evidence is a way to show or to demonstrate your ability to know the setting descriptions, the stage directions, narrative perspective shifts, and also structural breaks. So all these will be tested through all the prescribed texts. Okay, so you must remember this is the structure. Assert your point of view, embed your textual evidence, unpack the textual evidence to support your assertion. All right? Okay, so it is already 11 o'clock, and I hope I can give myself a quick break, yeah, Ulfa? And for all of you also, and I will play this quick video which I have prepared because I know in the past there have been students who have asked us in the literature in English subject 920 literature in English subject about the career pathway or rather educational pathway if they are to take this course. So I'm just going to quickly play it. Is that okay? And I will go off and have my own break. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a nice break, Dr. Aida. Go on. You can play the video.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry, I just quickly played it just now without waiting for you. Okay. Thank you, Ulfa, and I hope all of you will also have a quick break while I play this. While I play this video I've prepared. Yeah. Okay, so Ufa, is it okay if we continue, or you still need time for a break?
Um, for me, I think it's okay, but there is questions from Gabriel. She
Okay.
asked, "Hi there, pardon me. I have a question to ask regarding section B of the test. May I know how the marks are given?"
Section B. Right. Okay. Thank you for the question. So here is the sections A, which is critical appreciation, and sections B and C, the essay and creative response. Yeah. All of them will be based on the individual essay, which also contains creative responses, and they are 33.33 weightage. So what happens is that for each semester, all sections will be tested. Yeah. So if you're sitting for 9 to /1, which is paper 1, semester 1, you will be tested on poetry and short stories. So section A will be critical appreciation, which contains a given excerpt from either any one of the 16 poems. All right. And then you are supposed to answer that. So section B and C, section B will be the essay, in which you will be given a question, either on the again, either on the Malaysian short stories or the poems. Okay. The same as section A for critical appreciation. So the weightage is again the same, 33.33, 75 marks overall for all the papers, which also covers section C. Okay. Maybe Teacher Surya or Teacher Adelina, are you here?
Yes, we're here.
Hello.
Hello.
Surya. Yes,
Hi.
Surya. Can you help me out here? Because as you know, I've been away for 1 year for my sabbatical leave in the UK at the University of Leeds. So for this section of essay, the questions are very straightforward, right, Miss Surya? It's just like the ones before.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I still am relying on the past year papers of the previous years. So it looks like it's like when I look at it, then it can be on theme and sometimes relationship between characters. So, that's what I try to focus on for section B. And then I get them to give me justify it with textual evidence. But the new format, we are quite unsure whether it's going to follow the same way of questioning and how the marking is going to be. I think that's what Gabriel is asking.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, yeah. I myself rely heavily on the specimens given in the revised curriculum, right? And without actually sharing the actual questions which will be asked, right? I can only say that you are right.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Ida. I think Gabriel is asking whether how do we mark the creative response part for the section B?
The marking.
Yes, for the creative response. How do we allocate marks?
How do we allocate marks? Do you remember how we allocate the marks, Adelina?
Is it not confidential?
Sorry?
Is it not confidential?
I feel that the creative response is in the how we mark. Yeah, Gabriel, thank you for your question. Yeah, the creative response part. All right, okay. It is contained in. Is it not contained in the revised curriculum? I'm looking at my copy. I'm looking at my copy of the revised curriculum now.
Yeah, the revised curriculum has the assessment objectives, and I don't know. That's what I use to help me mark, like whether they are falling into all those criteria. But I'm not sure what the actual criteria is like. But I use the one that is in our sukatan, the revised yang dimurnikan.
Yeah, that's very useful one as a guide.
In regards to his question, Gabriel's questions. I'm looking at here essay question 2, essay question Denise Ujian. Is section B the creative part? Does section B have the creative part, or is it section C?
Actually, both sections B and section C seem to have the creative part in our sample that's been uploaded. So in section B, there are 2 questions. One is the questions that how they used to be in the previous years, the thematic based or general question. Then the second question, which means question 4. Question 3 is usually looks like it's a theme thing, and then question 4 looks like it's the creative one. And then for section C again, like for this year, Doll's House, question 5 looks like the theme base, and then question 6 looks like it is creative response. So both section B and section C both seem to have creative response. Is that how it's going to be?
Yes, I guess so, if it's in the specimen.
Yeah, that's only for semester 2 and semester 3. Semester 1 do not have any creative response.
Yes, correct. Like I said earlier, this is a revised curriculum, and we should ideally be guided by the Sukatan Pelajaran. Yeah, I'm trying to open the MPM website. All right, so that we can all have a quick look via whatever is there lah. Because yes, here we need to follow this one, but do we actually give information on how we mark in the Sukatan Pelajaran?
Not actually how we mark, but I think it's just some kind of criteria or something that is what we're really looking for, inside the answer.
So Gabriel question. Sorry, I'm looking back at Gabriel's question. So Gabriel wants to know how the marks are given. There will be what we call a mark scheme, in which it will be governed also by the same one in in the subs. If there is a question on, if there is a hold on now, let me just look at. Yes, if the question is regarding literature, history, and culture, then there will be marks given if the creative response is related to the context, if it's related to themes and issues, if it's related to cultural perspective. So the mark scheme will still be governed by that. But I cannot simply tell you here or specifically what are the topics which will be covered, because it will be related to the question itself. But what I can say is that the marks will be guided by the topic and the subtopic, and there will be elements of the creative responses, in which there will be 25 marks, right? And then there will be weightage for each aspect of the answer expected. Okay, I think this one is it's not something which we can actually share in terms of the specifications. All the students need to know is that what Gabriel, if you are worried about your creative responses, actually you don't have to be worried very much, because before we actually launched the revised curriculum, we already had a pilot testing, right, Miss Adelina and Miss Surya?
Yeah.
We already.
But this is the first time, I think, as teachers, we are also expecting some compassion in the, looking at the scripts. Because as teachers, we are also yes, the kids can write the creative response quite interestingly. But I think it's the first time, there's always that anxiety of the first time. I guess that's why some of them are asking this question.
Yes. Actually, I feel that the creative response allow for more marks to be given, because
that's very nice to hear.
Yeah, the more creative the students are in their responses, the more engaging the scripts will become. So I'm looking at Adelina's question. Despite much of the script details required, are allowed to use informal language, short forms, or slang. Right. It depends, again, I would say it depends on the question, Adelina. I can't for the life of me remember what we had in our discussions regarding the use of short forms and slang. Of course, if it's the question is, for example, can you write in X? Then X does not require long words or full words. Most of the time, students will use slangs or short forms, right? But again, the setters will be aware of this, that if we set and allow, and vectors allow questions to an MPM, will be one of those who will be also monitoring the type of questions they have their own assessment departments or units. They will ensure and cross-check whether or not this kind of question is allowed to be used, because it may not fit under the requirements of the topics or subtopics. So if, for example, the question given will open up a creative response which will contain all this kind of informal language, they may not allow it to be used as a question in the end, because they have a bank of questions. They have many questions to choose from. So they also will have their own committee to look at the questions they have chosen, the sectors and vectors have chosen, and the answer scheme and the mark scheme. So it is not something which they will just simply use. They will consider also the kind of answer scripts, the grade A script, the grade B script, the grade C script. Okay? So rest assured, Gabriel and your friends, that we will try our best to give questions, to set questions which will give students the chance to score and become a grade A student. Okay? Thank you anyway for sharing with us your concerns. Yeah?
Doctor,
There
is one more question. Gabriel asked, must quotes be included in creative response?
Yes. Although, you see, the creative response is just the way you answer, but the content is still the same. There has to, in the mark scheme, there will be a portion on textual evidence. It does not have to be a whole block of textual evidence. Maybe phrases here and there, okay, which we know comes from the text. All right. The reason being that if you do not include quotes, I have said earlier that without a quote, it is just a claim. And the claim can come from anywhere, not related to the context. So even if it's a creative response, it has to be anchored in the text. So how do we know it's anchored in the text? It's from you giving the text to evidence via quotes. All right. So that's how we differentiate between a grade C and a grade A student. Okay. Remember, creative response is how you respond. It's not creative information. What I feel that students must remember is that it's not you creatively changing the plot. It's not you creatively changing the dialogue. It's not you creatively changing the names of the characters. Oh, I don't like Othello. I want it to be Orion. I don't like Iago. I want to change it to Yamo, for example. No, that is not the creativity we are looking for. The creativity we are looking for is how you answer the question according to what we require. If we want it to be a diary entry, then you answer it in the form of a diary. The structure is like a diary. So, dear diary, for example, in your answer script. Today I feel very sad because I feel that I have been bullied. Iago, the person I thought was my friend, turns out that, so the question says that write diary entry as your Othello. Okay. And then you say and then you answer with dear diary and say Othello, and with regards to him being bullied or his feelings towards, or his feelings or his friendship with Iago, for example. And then you say, dear diary, today this realization came to me. I feel that I have come up from a long, a deep abyss, from the darkness to lightness. When you put that kind of personification, that kind of simile, you have marks already for creativity, meaning you are putting that kind of creativity towards your answer regarding the text, regarding the question. Okay? And then you say, Iago, the person I have always regarded as my best friend, who would never take advantage of me, or as though, I am just a person of no importance. I realized then that he has been a bully. He treats me as though I am an animal. And then you go back to the example I've given earlier. Here. Also, I'm led by the nose as SSR. So that kind of quotes, yeah? That kind of quotes and literary devices, all that will, you see, animal imagery. That is already a form of literary device. Okay? All that can be. So please do not think, not only for Gabriel, but for everyone, myself included, I'm sure for the teachers too, creative response, meaning how you respond to the text. Not like an individual formal essay lah. This is what I mean. Okay? Don't think creative means you have to change the text. You have to change everything. No. It is about, it is only about how you answer. So you can be creative, Gabriel, using literary devices. You can use modern slangs, for example, as long as it's relevant to the question and it's relevant to the text. Okay, I hope that is clear, unless there's something else which teacher Adelina and teacher Surya would like to add.
I think you're quite clear on that, so we have a better understanding of. I think they want to know whether it's okay to use this kind of slang words, and since it's a personal version, right? So since you say yes, as long as it's all relevant and very closely linked to the text, right?
And it answers the question, most important.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Link it back to the question.
Yes.
Okay. All right, got it. Thank you.
So if it requires, the creative question is about writing in a form of diary, then you must know how to write a diary. If it's a blog, you have your own blog, for example, blog about write about what you feel, or you are we can ask you. You are a journalist. Yeah, you are a journalist, and you are supposed to write a review of a play of Othello and link it to a current real life scenario in your around you. How do you do that? So the creative part will be, if you're a journalist and you manage to link it with one real life scenario, yeah, and if you're able to do so, then it's okay lah. You will get marks. So Gabriel said, would it be fatal if I didn't? Yes, Gabriel, it would be fatal if you are not able to use literary devices in your answers, because this is, after all, a literature paper, and we are very clear in our curriculum, the revised curriculum, that these are the aspects we are looking for, because this is what differentiates you between a literature student and a business student, for example. Okay, Gabriel? Gabriel, which school are you from? Gabriel? Okay, I wouldn't know. Whereabouts is that? Yeah, sorry for my ignorance.
Gabriel is from Penang actually, but he's a private candidate in another school.
I see.
Yeah, so it's very close by to my school.
I see.
Yeah, so yes. So sometimes I see him. I go over twice a week during the Muet lesson in my school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I see him twice or sometimes just once a week, but he's very, very keen on taking literature. So the schools, both schools have, because I can just walk from my school, it's very close. So the schools have made, some kind of an understanding.
Oh, that's so nice of you, Miss Surya. And Gabriel, you are in very good hands if you are able to join or to link up with Miss Surya, because Miss Surya has many years of experience teaching this subject, and most of the students have gone on to really good universities, right, Miss Surya? We have one or two in UM.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
They are very, he's, Gabriel is also like that. He keeps saying he wants to be a literature lecturer, literature professor, he says one day.
Oh, that's good. Yes. Yeah. Apart from UPM, UM also offers a bachelor program in English literature, while USM and IIUM offers BA in English language and literature, which is a combo program. I can only speak on behalf of the University Awam, UAs, IPTS, Institute Pengajian Tinggi Awam. But if you go into the IPTS, I'm sure there are also literature connected, I would say, related programs. I'm not so sure about pure English literature programs like what we offer in UPM, as well as the combo programs, the dual programs, not so dual, so combo programs in UIA, in USM.
Also, USM has just English language and literature studies as well. So some of my students who don't want to go far, so they go over to USM, home grounds.
Yeah, but yes, you are right, Ms. Surya. They offer BA English Language and Literature. So can we continue with the next part of the webinar? Is that okay? If we continue?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, so thank you very much again for the questions, but I would like to continue now with the questions themselves in the specimen. The questions for the SPM essay questions. So I've chosen Jumpa Lahiri's The Namesake. What exactly is the question asking? All right, so breaking down an SCPM essay questions. The first part here is looking at the key concepts, which is to identify the action verbs and the scope, and also the diagnostic approach, as I call it, to how do you deconstruct the question and analyze the text. So it carries 25 marks. Yeah, so three questions, 25, 25, 25, yeah, for each paper, depending on the semester. So 920/1, 920/2, 920/3. Discuss, so this is from paper 3 novels, section C. Okay, discuss the significance of identity in the namesake. Very simple. Okay, sorry, because the namesake should have been in italics. Okay, right. So here is what I call the 4-part dissection matrix, and every SCPM essay prompt contains these 4 hidden components. All right. So discuss the significance of identity in the namesake. The command word here is to discuss. All right. And then you have the significance of identity is a scope of discussion. And then here you have the key theme from the text itself, the namesake, and the textual evidence needed is also from the namesake, the novel. Yeah. So the command word discuss is for candidates to present a critical argument by exploring all the different aspects in the novel. Okay. The significance of identity here is the key theme of the namesake. So one of them is identity. And under the umbrella of the key theme identity are the sub-themes under identity of cultural identity, personal identity, family identity. Now, the scope here is only by referring to the novel The Namesake by Jumpa Lahiri, because in the novel, only 2 characters experience this issue of identity, namely the characters Gogol and Ashima. What is it that they experience? The immigration experience in regards to their construction of cultural identity. In terms of naming symbolism, why Gogol then changed his name? That is the personal identity, and it's related to also to his family identity as migrants. Okay, and the textual evidence here must come obviously from the novel, implied by the 25-mark rubric, in which students then must refer to character development. So the example will be Gogol, and then you must give evidence, important incidents with regards to Gogol, quotations or textual evidence in regards to Gogol, and the theme of cultural or personal or family identity in regards to Gogol. All right. So the same is used for Ashima. You must refer to Ashima's character development in the namesake, important incidents with regards to identity, and maybe in her case, it's not family identity, but cultural identity. And when you state it's actually cultural identity, you have to give quotations regarding Ashima, relating it to cultural identity, of course, to the theme of the novel. Okay. So from pieces to foundation, I just want a quick feedback or response from the students, the mini planning exercise. Okay. Using your annotated breakdown, write one thesis statement that unifies the prompt's requirements here. Okay. So the synthesis here, Lahiri presents identity as a complex and evolving process of migration. Sorry, the "of" is missing. Involving process of migration, family expectations, and cultural hybridity. Okay. So Lahiri is obviously the author. Jumpa Lahiri, the author of the namesake. So you're addressing the scope of the question. Identity, you're addressing the key theme in which you are supposed to discuss the significance of identity in the namesake. When you answer complex and evolving process, then you are actually addressing critically the command of discussing identity, where you then argue that it is a process of migration, family expectations, and cultural hybridity. This then will be your roadmap for evidence. Yeah. So the first one in your answer, I imagine it will be migration, and then maybe you are using Google as the character development. And then the second part, family expectations, maybe you're using Ashima, and you give evidence from the namesake. And cultural hybridity, maybe it's both Google and Ashima. Yeah. So then you give the evidence. All right. Okay. So that is my example of a thesis statement. So if any one of you would like to try, maybe the teachers, you can start off. Anyone?
Doctor, before that, we have a question from Gabriel. He asks, are we expected to put literary devices such as metaphors, dramatic ironies, visual imagery in creative responses?
Yes, we can. You can. But again, like I said, depending on the questions, the creative responses is how you answer creatively. If you can use a creative example of irony or a creative example of a metaphor or maybe a modern metaphor, then as long as it's related to the questions and it's related to the context in the prescribed text, it's actually expected. Yeah, all literary devices are expected in all the sections, not just the creative responses. Okay, is that all right, Gabriel? All right. So earlier just now I asked regarding discussing the significance of identity in the namesake. Yes, my pleasure, Gabriel. Going back to the mini thing, activity, but if it's already 11:45, then I will just give everyone an example of my own synthesis of the one thesis statement, yeah, to answer this, discussing the significance of identity in the namesake. All right. So this is the synthesis, the thesis statement, which is going to introduce your argument in addressing this question. Okay. So for further revision sources, because it's already 11:45, I'm just going to give you some of the revision sources from Literature English, but this is from my own previous YouTube presentation for Success STPM 2021 via Didik TV. I know Miss Surya also presented, but this is from my own, and for those of you who need to know more, but you must remember the text used is from the old curriculum, but the techniques to answer is still the same. All right, for critical precision and compulsory essay. But here in section C, we've already replaced it with the creative response also, or added the creative response also. Okay. Now, for those of you who contemplating to take the subject, or you feel that you have very confident, and I'm really what do you call it? Encouraging you to take the subject for your SCPM. You must always remember I call the mission synthesis, the grade A mindset. Whatever course you choose, please have a grade A mindset. But specific to 920 literature in English, firstly, you must understand the 6 assessment objectives mapping your success. And you should be able to examine the text through formalist, cultural, and gender lessons as listed in the curriculum. You must elevate your writing from just describing under lots to evaluating under HOTS. Yeah, higher order thinking skills, not lower order thinking skills. You must respect the closed text rule for section A, meaning nothing outside the text. No answer is expected with regards to the plot, what happened before the text, what happened after the text. No, just on the text. You must argue with original insight, avoid mere paraphrasing, avoid mere storytelling, retelling the story, the prescribed text, again, retelling the poem, again, no, yeah? And you must anchor, meaning support your claim with strong integrated textual evidence. Textual evidence is required across all 3, more so for section A, because we have given you an excerpt from the prescribed text. So remember that literature provides us insights into multiple realities of life and human nature. Enter your examination not just as a student, as a candidate of SCPM 920 Literature in English student, but as an analytical scholar. Okay? And I'm going to end this with a summary. So hopefully this will be a nice close for our webinar. Okay? Okay, so thank you everyone for listening, and that is the end of my presentation. Back to Ufa as the moderator, and perhaps we can have more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ida, for sebab sudi jadi penceramah hari ini. Ada apa-apa yang lain bertanya? Kita buka sesi.
Okay, yes. I think we have 5 more minutes for any questions, maybe from other participants. Thank you to Miss Surya and Miss Adelina. Miss Surya is in Penang and Miss Adelina is in Sarawak for joining us. And I hope this has been a really useful webinar for our students. And if there are students who are unsure about taking the course, I hope you know there are many sources out there which will be able to help you, even if you are a private candidate. And also we have very dedicated teachers at schools and who are also helping out the private candidates in their own centers. Thank you very much to them too. All right.